Coming out of COVID, I feel like many of us in our world and society, we've been asking this question, what should church look like moving forward? What should church look like moving forward is a question really fresh in our minds. And so for some people, that might mean we need to go back to our traditions. We need to hold on to those, right? If I'm not feeling stable, I'm going to grab onto some things that give me stability. Right? For other people, it might be, no, this is an opportunity to add creativity and freshness, newness in our churches. For some people, that might mean, I don't know, and maybe they don't go to church anymore. Maybe they're in a phase of exploring. And so I want to look at a few questions this morning, but it all revolves around, what should church look like? What should church look like? And here's my answer for this. I think that church should look a little bit more like a dinner party. Or, sounds good, right? There we go. Sounds good, Cyril. Cyril's in. Not only do I think it should look more like a dinner party, I actually think that if we look at church through the lens of a dinner party, we're going to have some helpful insights, because they are far more similar to one another than they are different. And here's the thing that surprised me this week as I was looking at Scripture. If we start to view the church like a dinner party, the Bible has a lot of insights to give us. Which is fascinating that it would have so much to say about dinner parties and what they can look like and what they should look like and what they value. It made me think of some other parties. When I was a young kid growing up a couple hours north of here in a very small town, there are not a lot of birthday party options when you are in a small town in February, right? There's not many options, not like there is today. And so I had two options. One, party at my house. Two, bowling alley, right? Bowling alley, yes. And every year, as far as I can remember, my parents picked bowling alley because they will clean up the mess from all of my friends. And so we bundle up in our snow gear, we drive to the bowling alley, we bowl, we play games, we eat food, we open gifts, and we eat cake together. And every year at the bowling alley, I was certain of two things. Two things would happen without a doubt. I could put money on it and it would come true. The first, my best friend Will would always come with a gift wrapped in old newspaper comics. Every year, no matter the occasion, newspaper comics wrapping the present. And second, for Will, he never knew what was under the wrapping paper. Because his mom would buy it, his mom would wrap it, his mom would hand it to him as he rushed out the door. And so he was just as surprised as I was every year. It was amazing. The other thing that I could always guarantee was going to happen is when it came time to cut the cake and start eating it together, I would go last. My parents would always give cake to our guests first, and I would have to wait until the very end to get my piece of cake. It also made me think of this article by Malcolm Gladwell. I think some of you have read it before. Malcolm Gladwell, writer, author, etc. He goes to a Mennonite wedding kind of near here. And he's amazed by it. He knows what to expect at a wedding, right? He goes to the ceremony. He sees a bride in a beautiful dress. He sees a groom in a fancy suit. It is their moment. But what catches him off guard is that during the reception, that beautiful dress and fancy suit are now covered by aprons. Covered in food, because they are serving the wedding reception meal to their guests. And it hits him in this powerful way that he's used to seeing the ceremony, but he's not used to seeing a reception like that. And so it might sound weird to say, and I'm going to be cautious of time because of this fact. For about 7 years, I've been really fascinated by this idea of church as dinner party. Or church as get-together, church as celebration, church as any party. Because I think it actually shows what we value. How we plan parties shows what we value in life. How we make the rules or leave rules out of it. How we set up the room. Is there food? Is there not? Where do the chairs go? How do we decorate? Do we not decorate? All of those things that make dinner parties meaningful, I think shows what we value. And as soon as we can start to wrap our heads around what we value, then we can start to do things in other areas of our life. If we can start to see what we value at a dinner party, now we can start showing those same values at church. I'm going to apologize to our youth leaders because they've heard me speak about this a lot. And the reason I speak about this a lot is I think this applies to Tuesday night youth group as well. Right at the start of the year, we get together at someone's house, our youth leadership team. We have some food. We talk about the plan for the year. And one of the questions is, if Tuesday night youth is a dinner party, how should we act? What should we do? What should the room look like? What activities should we have? What rules should be in place or not rules? What do we do to make every person feel meaningful and valued the same way they would if they entered your house for a party? If we do those things, then Tuesday night is going to be meaningful for our students and for our leaders as well. And so to start the year, we look at some pictures so that we can help to identify this. And so I kind of want us to do the same this morning. Are you okay with that? Okay, I've got some pictures for you. Based on what you see, what do you think the host of the party values? And here's the funny part to me. You have no idea who the host is in the picture or if they're in the picture. But I think you're still going to see what they value. Let's see if it works. Here we go. Here's a wedding. What does the host value? You can just shout it out.
They value like detail.
Detail. Presentation. Fancy stuff. Napkins. They fancy napkins. Yeah, that's very true. Not spilling food. Yeah.
Family. There's a high chair.
Family. Look, there's a high chair. Kids are welcome at this. Good find, Tim. Family. Probably out of necessity, but this is kind of giving me the sense that I'm only allowed to talk to the 8 people that I'm around. You know, I don't get to mix and mingle.
It's the inside voice party.
Inside voice party, right? This is the party that your mom and dad say all the rules as you're driving to the party, right? What about this one? It's a little dark, it's kind of hard to see, but what do you think they value? Food. They value food. Not just food, but it looks like it's a family meal style where you pass the food to each person. It's not a restaurant, right? They value family. They also value napkins. Napkins are just a good necessity. That's fair. What else do you think they value?
God, they're worshiping.
Yeah, they're worshiping. They're praying before a meal. But I love that the prayer is them holding hands. That feels very, like that's a connection. They're worshiping in unity. Yeah, exactly. What else do they value? Candles. They do. They value candles. Yeah, I wonder if it's like a Christmas meal or something. This one's even darker, but what do you think they value? Music. Yeah, there's no tables. There's no table settings.
They value value like connection? Or like
Connection. Get as close as you can to the people playing music. What else do they value? Probably pizza. That's a good guess. Most people value pizza. Yeah. I don't see any fancy decorations, but I do see they took time to make it feel special, right? I can picture someone on a really sketchy ladder trying to hang all those lights that afternoon. It's not a lot, but it's enough for their friends to show up and feel like, oh, someone made this special for me tonight.
Building has character, too.
Building has character, yeah. It's hard to see. Is it a gazebo? I don't know. But it has character. Yeah. They're laughing. I mean, this is not an inside voice party, Nathan. This is an outside voice party. Parties show what we value. And sometimes it's intentional, but often it's unintentional based on how we set up the room, based on what we do or don't do, what we say or don't say. Parties show what we value. And so if I was to put a picture of Avon up, I wonder what people doing this exercise would say we value. Right? At the wedding party that Malcolm Gladwell goes to, what do they value? They value community, service, low power distance, where even though it's your day, you're still going to serve your community. What did my parents value at the bowling alley? Serving your guests. Hospitality. I learned to put others first. I learned not to have a scarcity mentality. It's not, I need cake first because what if there's none left? It's, there will be enough. There's enough cake to give it to my friends first. How we do things at parties shows what we value. And if we keep in this frame of reference that how we look at a party should be how we look at our church as well, Luke 14 is pretty helpful. In Luke 14, Jesus is at a dinner party. Specifically, Jesus is invited to eat Sunday dinner at a religious teacher's house. He's having Sunday dinner with them. But the passage says that the tension is obvious. Everyone feels the tension because Jesus isn't invited because he's liked. Jesus is invited because they want to see how he's going to act at the dinner party. Is he going to follow the etiquette? Is he going to follow the rules of the dinner party? Because, just like today, ancient Israel had dinner party etiquette. And I think it's worth going through to understand some of the dynamics that are at play. When you arrive to the party, you immediately wash your hands. But it's not the hosts that wash your hands. It's not a communal kind of bucket or something where you all just wash your hands together like a self-serve scenario. A servant comes to you, washes your hands, and then you go into the party. Second, there's no table and chairs. The table is on the ground, and you then need to sit properly around that table so that it's polite, so that everyone can fit. But also you need to remember that each table seating is a place of honor. Depending on where you sit shows who has more honor and respect, and therefore who is given a bigger voice in that community. Anyone is invited to the party, but not to that party. There's kind of an inner circle scenario going on where you can come to the house and you can watch them, you can listen to the conversation, but you're not allowed to interact, you're not allowed to eat the food, you're not allowed to add in your 2 cents in conversation. You are there just as an observer. And so Jesus and the religious teachers are sitting at this dinner party. They are eating and discussing, and Jesus decides to do 3 things. First thing, Jesus sees a man in the room that has a very obvious health concern. Everyone sees it. It's not a hidden one. Everyone knows that this person is struggling with their health. And so Jesus asks the religious teachers a question. He says, "Is it against the rules of this party and the Sabbath day for me to heal that man?" Is it against the rules? Am I allowed to do it? And the religious teachers aren't sure what to say, and so they stay silent, and Jesus heals him. And then Jesus says this. He says, why wouldn't you do the same? If one of your children or one of your oxen fall into a well on the Sabbath day, wouldn't you help them as well? Jesus is challenging their personal piety and their legalism, and challenging them to have radical hospitality at every moment. Second, Jesus challenges the rules of etiquette at their party. Jesus is clearly a people watcher in the Gospels, and so he's watching people, and he notices how they all seat themselves. He says, when someone invites you to a dinner party, don't take the place of honor. For a person more distinguished than you may have been invited as well. And then your host is going to come and kick you out of your chair because that's that person's chair. Instead, what you should do at a dinner party is take the lowest chair, so that your host sees you and says, that's not your spot. Come closer. You're meaningful. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Jesus sees that their dinner parties, yes, they're about food, but they're really about competition. Competition for status, competition for voice, competition for popularity. And Jesus challenges them to say, that's not what community is about. Community is about serving others, not trying to gain more for yourself. He might say it like this. If you fight for status, you're going to be humbled. But if you humbly serve your community, your status is going to be obvious. Finally, Jesus tells them a story about a dinner party while still at the dinner party. He says that a man decides to throw this big party. It's the party of the year. He has the menu picked out. He knows how the room is going to be set up. He has the entertainment. He has waiters and all of this amazing staff. He's ready to go. The only thing he needs are his guests. And so he talks to a servant and he says, go to my friends, invite them to the party, and as soon as they arrive, we'll get the show on the road. And so the servant goes and finds his friends and comes back and says, they're not coming. One of your friends said, I just bought some land and I'm kind of excited to dream about what I'm going to do with it, so I'm not going to come today. And another friend says, well, I just bought farming equipment, so I got to try it out. Another friend says, I just got married, so I'm kind of busy right now. None of them show up. They're great excuses, right? And so the host says, okay, do this instead. He says, let me find it. Go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town. Bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame. They will be the guests at my party. Then Jesus gives new dinner party rules. When you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back and repay you, and it's done. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, because although they can't repay you, God sure will. And this is the moment for me in the story where I don't think Jesus is talking about a dinner party anymore. I think he's talking about something else that connects to where we are this morning. For Jesus, parties aren't meant to be self-serving, and if a party is like the church and the church should be more like dinner parties, I don't think church should be self-serving either. It is supposed to be an avenue for radical hospitality and generosity in our community. And so it might sound weird for me to be talking about parties so much this morning, but as a pastor, I have far less interest in being a gatekeeper for God's community, of being the judge of deciding who gets in and who doesn't get in, of carefully watching people to see, are they following the rules of etiquette? I don't have any interest in that. Instead, I would much rather be a party planner for God's dinner table. That seems far more exciting to me. And my hope is that we can start to feel the same way together as a community. Right, as a church, I am far more excited about offering generous hospitality and community the same way that I feel it at a party. Right, when you have friends over to your house, I don't know if I've ever had a moment where people have left and gone, that was not great. Right, it feels exciting, it feels joy-filled, it feels full of grace and generosity and compassion. And I think our churches need to feel that exact same way, that we are showing radical hospitality to everyone that comes through our doors the same way we would in our homes at a party. So let me ask a simple question again. If our church was a dinner party, what would people say we value? Think about it for a moment. What would people say we value? What goals would we have? What rules are needed or lack thereof? What style or atmosphere would help us reach those goals? How are the chairs set up? Do we get to mix and mingle if that's a value that we have? What would people say our church as dinner party values? Here's some simple answers that I have, but I'm excited for Sacred Conversations to hear what answers you might have. First thing is Anabaptists. We are an Anabaptist church. We are committed to the way of Jesus. That means the way that Jesus lived and taught, but that also means that we respond to the living presence of Christ in our lives through the Holy Spirit. That as the Holy Spirit leads us towards something, that we are not stuck in a box, but we move with the Spirit. We listen to the Spirit. I think that's what sets the church apart from a dinner party. Or maybe a dinner party is extra good when it's Spirit-filled. And so if we look at the world and our church and dinner parties through the lens of Jesus, then I think it's worth repeating, because I've said this before. When Jesus is confronted with the option to choose follow a biblical mandate, like don't do any work on the Sabbath, or see someone that is broken and hurting and struggling and choose hospitality and generosity, what does Jesus pick time and time again? Hospitality, generosity, and radical versions of that. That's not Jesus saying we don't follow Scripture or the Bible. That is Jesus saying that there are moments where our priorities shift, where our priorities are adjusted to be more biblically in line. Right? It makes me think of this really silly here's a brain teaser, okay? It has its obvious flaws, but there was a meat eater, a person that only eats meat, who is also, they are a believer in zero waste. They don't throw anything out. They refuse to throw anything out, and they are a meat eater for all of their meals. And one day they decide, I can't do this anymore, okay? I feel like it's wrong. I'm going to switch, and I'm going to be vegan. I'm not going to eat any more meat. But then they come home and they realize they have a major problem. Their freezer is just full of steak. Just whole freezer. Here's a dilemma for them. Do they throw the steak out so that they don't eat it anymore because they believe in veganism? Do they eat it because they believe in zero waste? You don't throw stuff out. What do they value in this moment? Throw a party. There we go. I mean, this breaks down pretty quickly, right? Throw a party, give it away, be generous. But if we sit in the tension a little bit, I think we'll start to realize that we all have moments in our lives where we have two opposing beliefs and we start to prioritize one, right? We start to make a shift. We start to prioritize that, yes, I can believe both of these are true. Yes, I can believe that both of these are right for my life, but that doesn't mean that both fit in every single moment, right? I can believe that God has biblical mandates for my life, and I can believe that I'm supposed to be generous and hospitable, but when Jesus is confronted with a situation where both don't work, Jesus chooses hospitality and generosity and forgiveness and compassion. That's the priority in that situation. When Jesus is stuck between personal piety and radical generosity, time and time again, Jesus is going to choose that one. And if we are committed to the way of Jesus, then shouldn't our community prioritize that as well? Shouldn't our dinner party? Shouldn't our church as dinner party? Number 2, I'm a big believer that God's dinner table is always expanding. That new leaves are being added to that table as often as they need it. It is expanding not just in size, but in generosity, in compassion. It is expanding in invitation of who gets to come to that table. I think our churches should reflect God's dinner table. Are we willing to see our church expand with new people, with diverse opinions? Are we willing to keep opening up our circles? I won't say who, but one of our youth leaders, I was sharing one time about my philosophy of circles over rows. Right? Row is what we're doing right now. I'm saying a monologue to you and you are listening. But circle means that we are doing life together, that we are brushing shoulders, we are sharing opinions and ideas, we are sharing compassion and hospitality. And one of my youth leaders spoke up and said, actually, I think it should be semicircles over rows. Because a semicircle is never closed. There's always room to add more people. There's always space. You are always invited to join in on the discussion. I like that better. That adds value to our church, to our dinner party, to our youth group. And I think that reflects God's ever-expanding dinner table better. Number 3, opening our doors to the hurting is less about using our power to help the weak, although we do have to recognize where we have power in society. Opening our doors to the hurting is more about realizing that we are all hurting. Some people more obvious than others, but living in humility means finding what connects us. And I think 2 things connect all of humanity. One is our frailty as a human. Our weakness, our struggle, our difficulty, our hurting, and our pain. That is what connects all humans. And number 2, we are all made in the image of God, and that can never be taken away from anyone. There are 2 things that connect all humans, and so when we start inviting hurting people into our church, it is not the table at the Jewish meal of, well, I am up here and I guess I'll invite you. It is we're all even playing field. I can bring my hurts, I can bring my image of God, you can bring your hurts, you can bring your image of God, and we are going to try and pursue God together. And let me be clear, I'm not saying then that we don't have standards. I'm not saying we can't speak into other people's lives and challenge them to live better. What I'm saying is more often than not, we should choose generosity. Number 4, here's my last point before the worship team comes up. Small, simple choices make a dinner party meaningful. Small, simple choices make a church meaningful. Right? Small, simple choices are what brings heaven to earth in our communities. What makes a dinner party or our Tuesday night of youth or our Sunday morning services meaningful isn't how fancy it is. Right? I love this picture. This is not a fancy party. But you can tell that they put some effort in. You can tell that they cared. You can tell that they value the people that are there. What gives our church service meaning isn't that it's fancy. It isn't our budget. It is the small, simple choices that we make that give it meaning. And more importantly, it is the small, simple choices that we make that give people meaning. The decisions we make can give people meaning in our community. And so here's a short list of small, simple choices that we can make. Greeting our friends at the door with a smile. Cooking that favorite recipe of yours and putting a little bit of extra time and effort in. When I was thinking about dinner parties, I thought about when a new person comes that has never met people before, and you're in the middle of a conversation, what do? You immediately leave that conversation, you go find them, you welcome them, and you say, let me introduce you to everybody. Come into the conversation with us. You don't have your blinders on, where I am in this moment and this is for me. No, you're always aware of the new people that might be at that door. You take some time in the afternoon to move furniture around so it makes people feel welcome. Right? Maybe you push all the chairs into a circle so conversation can be better. Maybe you push it against the walls so you can have a dance floor. Maybe you add that extra leaf into your dining room table so that all of your favorite people can sit together and have a meal and hold hands like that one picture showed us. When a friend brings a strange opinion, who cares? I'm glad you're at the party. Maybe a conversation's needed for another time, but I'm just glad you're here with me in this moment. Here's why I like this list. That list can be true of a dinner party. That list can be true of youth on Tuesdays. And that list can be true of Sunday mornings. I think we can learn more when we start to see church as a dinner party and dinner parties as church.